All right, hello. Hello, hello. This is my attempt at a live podcast again. This is probably the second live podcast I'm trying to do. I know it's a bit awkward. I did not convert the other one into just audio. I left it as raw and transferred it, but I haven't made it live over YouTube. Yeah, I don't think I'll be editing that one. I might keep doing these live podcasts. All right. Just a word of warning. I'm not gonna make much sense. It's gonna be mostly stream of consciousness, and the focus of this stream, or rather podcast, is just my thoughts, very generalized thoughts on mostly about Death Stranding. I've been wanting to do this. I feel that the further away from the time I play this game, the less I'm gonna remember. It's got some of my theories, but they're probably wrong because of my misinterpretation. Again, not again, but there is gonna be spoilers, obviously. I just wanted to have a chat. I've got my notes up here. I've got the game running on the stream, so it's something to look at. I might turn down the volume because all the buzzing noises and whatnot might be a bit too annoying. Let me just turn that down. I might be interacting with people that come in and might want to have a chat perhaps about it. I'll turn that down. Hang on, maybe. I wonder how. I might turn it up just a little bit. Okay. Yeah, my notes are really scattered, just like my thoughts. This is not a deep dive video. Definitely not a deep dive. What I'll do is... Oops. I might open up the logs and stuff like that. It might give us a better idea of what's going on. I barely collected much of anything in here. Oh, not log. What am I doing? Interviews? Yeah. Maybe I can use it as a reference material for this discussion. It's a chat. Let's call it a chat. It's not much of a discussion, is it? Yeah. Let's try to move this along. Oh, yeah, I'm going to sidetrack a lot as usual. Things are going to crisscross. I'll make references to other stories, other games as well. Just so you just to set up a sort of expectations of what I'm going to talk about. I find doing podcasting quite scary. That's one way of saying it. Scarier than playing games for some reason, and I'm doing it in a live stream as well, and with terrible notes and terrible memory to help me out. So to sort of help with the building of the expectation, sort of treat this like a background noise in a way. There might be some, bits and pieces that sort of make sense. I don't know. Let's just try to move forward a little bit more. Let's see. Okay, I'm just looking at my notes, jumping around, ideas and bits of things, coming back to the same subject several times. Yeah, and repetitious. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so with the game, most of the time, I don't know what's going on. But that's fine. How I've approached playing this was try not to have a certain level of expectations of what it might be. I think what's driving me to play this game is learning about the characters or experiencing what the characters are going through, the journey itself. I think that's very important for me. rather than trying to think ahead. Like if I try to think ahead, oh, this is gonna happen. This is what the twist is. This is and sometimes it's unavoidable. It's something that maybe I've learned along the way that, oh, you gotta think ahead to do this and that. But with this game, I try not to do. Well, I try to do that for quite a few games as well. It's, I don't know, maybe it's a subconscious thing, or maybe it's from the years of playing games. I try to be a step in front or ahead of what I'm supposed to be doing to try to anticipate of that sort of thing. Oh, maybe I'm not sure if that really makes sense. So I don't get bogged down on trying to relearn stuff again. That goes with the stories as well. I mean, there's a okay, hang on. There's a bit that I want to talk about, but not right now. But with this game, it's just all right. I'm getting when I first started playing it, I was like, all right, there's quite a few systems here. How do I deal with it? There's also the story, the lore, and I still don't get it, but that's fine because there is something that I learned from the story. It's not like I was completely lost. I mean, I could be completely wrong, but that's my perception, my interpretation of what I'd experienced in the game, and I'm fine with that. So as I approach the game, okay, from a gameplay systems point of view and from the story point of view. And from the story point of view, I just go along with the ride. With the gameplay point of view, I had to learn a few things I'd never done before in other games, like trying to traverse a very dangerous terrain. And it sort of builds the game sort of builds itself in a way. Well, the designers, the creators, the developers designed the game in a way that sort of puts you in that learning process of picking up the systems, how it comes together, how you do things, how you traverse the land. And I find that to be very fascinating process, the entire learning thing. And I just like others that played this, I stumbled along. I didn't know what to do. There were a few bits like what was it? Learning how to throw a item. I didn't think I need to do that, but it was a possible thing, and you need to do that. I need to do that at a certain point. I think everyone needed to do that at a certain point. And I lost a fight with a character because I didn't know how to throw. But I learned to do it eventually. There's no like reticule for you to aim and throw as well, but as I played it, I learned how to do it in that segment against one of the antagonist characters. And I find that to be fascinating. Hey, Suspense, welcome. I'm just doing like not analysis, not an in-depth thing, just a chat, a very almost a casual chat about Death Stranding and anything else that I played in connection to. I think mostly I'll be talking about Death Stranding. It's sort of a live podcast. How you doing? I hope you're well. So let's. What is this? Humanity's biggest languages. There is so many things to talk about. Just like Disco Elysium, there is a lot of stuff, and in a way, I sort of regretted not talking about Disco Elysium right after I finished playing it. But at that point, I was so exhausted by it. Not in a bad way, but in a way that I need to like disconnect myself from that game and that world and that story. So I had to remove myself for a period of time. I couldn't revisit again because it was weighing on me. There was something quite existential about it. But with this, it's the same thing as, it's similar, but it didn't weigh on me that much. But if I thought about it more, there is this existential I suppose, crisis about it. If I try to think about it more, I don't know. Maybe I've developed a little bit in terms of how to deal with that sort of feeling. Oh, thanks, thanks for that suspense. Looks like we got a bit of a spammers. I'm glad you're doing well, dude. Hey, Golden Cheeseburger. Welcome. Hope how's things? Hope you're doing well. Where was I? So with this game, I thought I try to talk about it as soon as I can. Otherwise, I'll forget what I need to talk about. But as I was saying, it there is a lot of stuff happening in this story, just as well as things like Disco Elysium. So with Disco Elysium, what I'd done was much later on was just pick one thing about it and talk about it, and also talk about it in a very general sense, which is what I'm trying to do with Death Stranding. So far I talked roughly about my approach towards this game and trying not to anticipate too much in what's going on. In doing so, like it's difficult for me to try to process everything as well. But I've processed sufficient, not sufficient, but an amount which I feel satisfactory for me. It might not be sufficient. I'm sure there is a ton more, and I've misinterpreted a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff. I just find it so fascinating. I was thinking about last night. I was thinking about it this morning. I had so many things, but I figured like if I say it out, like when I say it out, I'm thinking, well, that's really not much to it at all. Hey, Mon, welcome, welcome, welcome. How's it going? Uh, Golden Cheeseburger. Would you say Death Stranding is a lasting experience to you? As in, will you remember it for years to come? It's hard for me to say that. Like for years to come, it did make an impression to me. The moment I played it and the moment I finished playing it. But it's very hard for me to say years from now will it make a lasting impression. I like to say yes, but I can't really predict all the way that far for me because I have the tendency to move on from certain things, and I would like for me I would go. There's things in my past that I played in terms of games or any media that I'd absorbed, uh, and then I move past and go, okay, at that point in my life, that did make an impression for me, but later on, it really isn't that critical for me anymore or that making that much of an importance. I filed that away almost like in a museum. It's important. It made an impact to me at that period of my life in that time, but I moved from it, either learning from it or taking something from it. In some ways, I know again I'm being very very general there. So I mean that's a very good question. I like to think that yeah, it has made a lasting impression for me in years to come. I gotta stop doing this thing. All right, for those that have joined me, I'm not playing the game. I'm just going to be talking about it, talking briefly. Well, not briefly, but roughly around it with my own thoughts and some ideas. And I sort of roughly got into it. So I'm going to have a look at my notes here. Uh, let's see. Okay. As I was saying, like when I was playing it, there's this fear, and because there's almost a sense of how it is overwhelming. And I'm not talking about the story here. The story is a thing on its own, but the gameplay itself, when I first played it, I was like, oh, wow, your character can trip. Your character can, lose balance and all that. It took me a while. And one of the earliest mission or order was carrying a character to the incinerator, a corpse. And I'd fallen over. I was like, oh wow, this is something I've never done before. But I read about it, like there's this balancing thing, right? It's like how difficult is that gonna be? I wasn't quite sure. I mean, I've seen some gameplay on it. I was like, am I going to need to use a controller? And I've got fears about using controller because I'm not a really, I'm not a controller sort of person. But I'd used it before. If I have to, I'll learn how to use it. But fortunately, I was able to play the game quite well with mouse and keyboard, um, and that built my confidence up in the game itself. And that is a learning process that I really appreciate in this game. Whether or not the game holds your hand, it's hard to say. I think it teaches you by. Here's the thing: this game is lengthy, quite lengthy. I sunk in 50 plus hours. I think on Steam it said almost 60 hours, but the game told me about 52 hours. I suspect Steam calculated the time that I'd watched the cutscenes is included in the almost 60 hours, because the cutscenes were quite lengthy. That's something I'd like to talk about in this chat, I suppose. But back to playing the game and learning the game mechanics, I found that fascinating. Like it didn't really, it had these tips popping out, I think, if I remember correctly, like how to carry things and stuff like that. But you learn as you play the game, and there were lengthy chapters, right? There's one chapter that had loads of orders in it. I feel like maybe the game length could have been cut down, perhaps, or trimmed down at certain points. But it really did help build that confidence in me in traversing the land. And then the game would start introducing different elements, right? Like the BTs, the mules, the terrorist units, the other characters, the different sort of BTs, and the constant. Well, maybe constant's not the right word, but the landscape is the one that's always there, and you build almost an affinity towards this landscape. It becomes a character in itself, just like in Resident Evil 7, the house is a character. Just like in Control, the oldest house, that is a character in itself. This landscape, this post-apocalyptic America landscape, it is a character in itself. I find that to be fascinating. No, that's fine. I think suspense. It's a game that I feel, you go at your own pace, and that's what makes it so fascinating, right? Like, I think for some, it depends how you want to approach it. Like, you just play it as you go along. Play it as how you see fit, and that's how I sort of approached it as well. There's people who spend hundreds of hours in this game, right? My focus was to experience the storyline. That's why I sort of beelined for the story based, the main story based quest. I don't think there's not really any side quests. There's like these side deliveries that you can do, and they add to the flavor. And there is, okay, so I watched like a bit of a I try not to watch too many YouTube discussions about this, because I wanted to express my own thoughts and my experience before it gets influenced by other people. As I said, it could be completely wrong, but I watched one which is this guy. He spoke in a very eloquent, concise manner in regards to the game mechanics, and one of the things he mentioned was how this is an open world game, but it felt very. He didn't use the word restrictive, but that's the idea I was getting in terms of how it's a restrictive game. Like, it's a big world that big map, you can walk around anywhere, but it seems like the game is trying to funnel you towards the game story, right? Oh, that's a lot, golden cheeseburger. That is quite a bit. I mean, well, you enjoyed it, right? That's pretty good. Like for me, I would describe this as a linear open world experience, right? And I just find that fascinating because it's sort of almost a paradox. It's a it's an open world where you don't have all sort of different activities going on, right? You have deliveries. That's your focus right there. Sure, you can go and grab um, things that's fallen over. You can go grab materials for recycling to use for the facilities and things. But that builds into the game itself. That, I mean, builds into the very the idea of what the game's trying to sell. That's like a whole different thing as well. The concept of the game. The concept being to rebuild and reconnect US, right? This in this fictional world. But not but. And there's so many things. It just connects with everything. Even the word connecting with things has quite a lot of meaning in this game as well, right? It's about connection, disconnection. That's part of the concept. Okay, I'm starting to sidetrack a lot, so just sort of bear with me. This is what I normally do. I sidetrack a lot. I sort of come back around again and mix in with a whole bunch of other stuff. All right, so the idea of a linear open world game it's fascinating to me. You're in this wide open space. You know, you can see mountains in the distance. You can see other terrains in the distance, and there are not really any other sort of other activities. Like I mean, let's compare it to something like Horizon Zero Dawn, right? You've got the main quest, side quests, other activities. You like what is it? Doing the hunts, errands, that sort of stuff, right? Then you have other games that have other things as well. Let's say Assassin's Creed Odyssey. The whole drive in that is to collect more. I mean, part of the end game goal in that is to collect higher tier equipments, right? Or weapons. So you've got different characters that can give that to you. There's like these daily activity type things. I think Origin sort of had that as well. With this, I don't think there's that at all. It is, I mean, from my experience, like, because I tend to try to focus on one thing, otherwise I'll just get overwhelmed. So my focus was just to do the quest. But then I started to think, were there other things that's just really overwhelming me? I don't think there were anything, right? I mean, you could attempt to do other deliveries, but that's it. They're all just deliveries. I mean, there's no, it's hard to try to explain, but I find that it's a good thing that there's this sense of linearity, the fact that it sort of try to funnel you towards the main quest line. It works to my advantage because I wanted to focus on the main story. But at the same time, like when I play games like this, I want to make sure that I'm prepared for the final encounter, because I've been trained right in the back of my mind. There's going to be bosses, going to be mini bosses you have to deal with, right? I have to be prepared. But I didn't have to grind at all to get to that point. Like it's just sort of on the way. All right, I'll just deliver these things. I mean, in the main quest, it's just built into it. You get the weapons that you need to deal with. You get the equipments that you need to deal with. The later on encounters, the later on challenges, right? I think the guy in the YouTube video, he was saying that he wanted to go to other places, like I think the mountains before that was part of the quest, but he couldn't get there because he didn't have the right equipment to get to that area. I didn't find that was a problem for me because I didn't feel like as I said, my focus was on the story itself. Yeah, exactly. They're collectibles. They're not marked or anything. You need random. Yeah. So you sort of, that's where the exploration bit comes in. I think he was also saying the exploration part, but like I didn't even do that. I didn't even try to focus on the exploration. Like my journey, that sort of encompass the exploration, but I didn't go off the path that I need to go to. So in a way, it sort of fits me. But I look out in the distance in this game because it's massive. You see all this land and stuff like that. Like I didn't feel like I need to go there or go here or see that sort of thing. I didn't feel like that. Like if I play something like Assassin's Creed, I'm seeing in the distance there's all these other cities, there's all these towns, blah blah blah, and I'm like, oh, there's all this. I get distracted, right? But so I've developed a way that I need to focus on this storyline. If I need to get more better item, I'll just do a few more other side quests. Or if this side quest is going to influence the main quest, I got to make sure I do that and so on. But with this, I like the idea of how it's almost stripped away from all that, and it's yourself, BB, the landscape, right? And you're just looking at the landscape. You're just going through the landscape. It's there, but I don't have to go beyond that. It's an odd thing, and I don't even know how to describe it properly. But the game does it's designed in such a way that you get to experience a bit of all the landscapes, right? You know, the snowy parts, the wooded area, the grassy area, and all the places with lots of chasms and stuff. Like it gives you a bit of a taste. There are more, and I missed out on. I was watching one where the guy went to a waterfall area. That's this massive waterfall, and that looked incredible. I missed out on that. I think that's part of the exploration. Now I'm gonna sort of jump to the end game part of things. So this is a bit of a spoiler, like quite a big spoiler for some of you. After the last scene, so if you want to, turn off your your phone, you probably want to do it now. After the last scene, the game sort of goes back, right? 2 weeks before the ending, if I'm not mistaken. And you're back with BB or Lou in the container. Like for me, after I experienced the storyline, right? Seeing BB back in the container, it doesn't feel right at all. Like for me, I'm like, we've just gone through so much, all this emotional thing to see BB back into the container. And then, but that's part of the, it's for you to go out and do more of the side stuff, to do more delivery, to construct the structures and that sort of thing. Like, but for me, it just felt like all that emotion is just sort of deflated, maybe. But I understand what it has to be done is for those that wants to go out and re-explore again. Now, I compare now I'm talking about like end game type thing, right? Like how a game would let you re-explore an open world environment and do the rest of the activity. So this is sort of roughly tied to this whole linear gameplay, linear pathway in an open world game. That's where the paradox and perhaps some conflict comes along. So comparing this with, say, Final Fantasy 15, again, this is a spoiler. No, I didn't find the Christmas hat. With Final Fantasy 15, spoilers. At a point in the game, right, you can time travel back with the bros, your friends, the people that hung out with you, right, and explore the world again before the whole thing ends, right? And I feel like it worked for that one because I wanted to hang out more with the bros in that game because it is so sad what happens at the very end of that game. And I feel like I want to go back and I want to just chill with the guys. I know it's very like that game. It got to a point where it might be a bit too grindy, but hanging out with them was a very cool experience. Like they each sort of made fun of each other. They all have fun hanging out, that sort of thing. You know, it's like it's a road trip in that game. With this, you are with BB. You are connected with BB, right? But what's the word I'm looking for? That release, that emotional release with what happens after at the very end of that story, and then to come back again. I don't know. It just feels like, oh, but I get to hang out with BB, I guess. But BB's in the container. But I get what they had to do that. Okay. So I'll just try to move along a bit. I think I'm getting too repetitive. Oh yeah. Okay. So the other thing I wanted to talk about, I think some people might describe this as a asynchronous cooperation, maybe. I think I would call it like a collaborative co-op gameplay, right? Or collaborative multiplayer. Like this is the closest thing that I can see to a multiplayer game where there is an effort to try to help build an environment, a world, and help each players. You don't get to see the other players, but you get to see what they create as well as their voices, right? It's such an incredible idea. I mean, I'm not sure if it's unique. I don't think it's a unique thing. But to have other players be able to build bridges, which is the main thing that helps a lot, right? But you get the post boxes, the shelters, the charging stations, all those things help you out. Like the major one, it's the bridges to cross, the chasms, the horrible rocky areas, and the main road, the main like highway thing as well. It's not really the difficulty setting. I mean, the difficulty setting helped me a lot in terms of the combat and dealing with the enemies. Oh no. I think my stream is dying, isn't it? Did it just die? I just dropped some frames. It's like knowing and has no choice to stop it. Yeah, sort of. Tar balloons. Oh, those ones that I was back up. All right, thanks. Golden cheeseburger suspense. I can't believe it keeps. What I'm gonna do is drop the quality. I don't know why. Maybe it's this time of the day when the freaking internet just goes a bit crazy. I'll just drop the quality by a couple hundred kbs or whatever. What was I saying? Oh yeah, the collaboration, how other players sort of contributes to your playing experiences, and I feel it's incredible, right? I mean, obviously people can troll and build cars and block pathways and stuff like that, but I haven't really encountered that. I think some of the earlier PlayStation, the players on the PlayStation ecosystem, I suppose, have experienced that, but I haven't really experienced that at all. Like people just leaving stuff around, blocking pathways and things like that. But I think there's ways of just deleting those items anyway, or just deconstructing them. But yeah, this is incredible. This process of helping other players out without being there, but leaving behind things. But here's the thing as well, right? The structures that they've constructed, they leave behind, can fall apart. They wear out because of the timefall, because of the environment in the game. So you can contribute by fixing them up, upgrading them, leaving bits and pieces of like signs and stuff like that to help other players out, to sort of give them a sense of hope that you're not alone. And in this game, you do feel alone as you travel through, but you have your BB. And I never truly, like, you do feel alone, but you don't feel like it is a very lonely experience. There is and I say this a lot. It's a very there is a feeling of it feels zen like. It feels zen like in the journey. I mean, before you encounter things like BTs or the mules or terrorists or any of those guys, right? It's just you and the landscape and you having traversed it, just back and forth delivering stuff. That is a very zen-like experience for me. And yeah, it's lonely. You don't even get to see other animals. Like you don't see critters running around. You don't see deers. Nothing, as far as I know. Was there any birds? I don't think there were any, right? But sometimes you do see like NPC porters walking around. They don't really say anything. They wave at you. You can exchange stuff, and like they don't happen very often. But when I see them, I'm like, oh wow, this is an NPC walking around. That's so cool. And you know, you can exchange stuff with them as well. And I like those little mechanics there, and it sort of helps in making it less lonely. But as I said, it didn't really feel that lonely because you're sort of interacting with the landscape. The landscape itself is a sort of a character. Yeah, I don't, there's probably more I could, but I just don't know how to describe it properly. There's probably more I could talk about in terms of the landscape being a character. I'm sure there's others that can say it in a much more eloquent manner. Yeah, that's true, Golden Cheeseburger. But I think that there is a sense of duality to it. And that's what I want to get into as well. Like what I'm going to talk about. It is a grim world. There are all these, buildings that once had people in it, and it's all wasted away. And it looks like the nature is sort of taken over in some ways. But it's not like a jungle or something. It's like a very it's like a rocky sort of environment, but there's grasslands and things like that. There is some forest here and there, but it didn't feel like it was very depressing or very grim. There is a sense of hope. There is, like, you're right, the music sometimes makes it feel, very sad. Where is everyone, right? But again, this is sort of built into the whole idea, the concept of this entire game. And that's something else. That's like, that's another layer there to talk about. There is a lot to talk about. So I'll try to like sort of flow through it. But you brought up a very, very good point, Golden Cheeseburger. But I'll try to sort of talk about that as well. Let me just quickly go through my notes. Hang on, let me just drink something. I'm gonna drink my water. Let's see. Oh, the other thing I want to talk about is, like, I was so scared about, because when I played it, there was things like endurance, stamina, and crossing the water. I was like, what's going on? I keep falling over and stuff like that, And I still have that bit of fear, but, you have your scanning device that helps you out, right? I forgot what it's called now. The scanning device anyway. And that's also connected to BB as well. There's all these connections everywhere. But the main concern it's not just yourself, right? It's also BB as well, because BB cries. BB is your companion. You're in your long journey. BB is there with you, right? But the other concern is your packages. It is the main, one of the main points of it is part of the gameplay mechanics, right? To watch out for these packages, and then I try to aim to not get it damaged, including the container itself. I'm constantly worried about BB and the container, right? And like for myself, like, your character, you could bleed out and that sort of thing, but there are ways around that problem. And even death for your character isn't that scary at all, right? It is an inconvenience. It is a it is a, an annoyance, right? But you're a repatriate. I mean, Sam's a repatriate, right? If he dies, he comes back again. And that concept is built into the game itself. It's not just end screen, reload. There were a couple of bits that were like that, and they were at very important points of the game where it's just game over, restart. It doesn't even say restart. If I remember correctly, it says connect or reconnect. It was something along those lines. And that's fascinating. That's linked to the very ideas in the game itself. It's about connection, disconnection, life and death, right? Between life and death, rebirth. And that's a whole other thing that I want to talk about. But anyway, in terms of not fearing death in the game, that's a fascinating thing to me. So you guys know there is another game that's like that as well. And in the YouTube clip that I saw, the person brought it up, and that is the Souls game, right? Like, your character doesn't exactly die. I mean, you do lose the stuff that you've collect, right? I mean, in terms of I think the souls that you've collected, but death and life is part of that game. Unless I'm completely mistaken. And that person in the YouTube clip like made that point, and I haven't really realized because I don't really play Souls game, but I had experienced that. I play partially because I'm terrible at it. I don't play it, but there's like this similarity with this game and that. But that's part of the similarity. Anyway, I thought that was an interesting idea in terms of how death is handled in this game, and that is part in this game is part of the lore, right? The part of the character, part of the whole thing, the life and death stuff, and that's built into the game mechanics. And I thought that is fascinating. What else was I gonna say? Yeah. So my concern mostly was about the packages and BB, and having that process of being able to soothe BB was an interesting concept. And there's other things as well. I think I read in an interview from I think it was Kojima. They were saying you never get to see what the characters do in terms of like they when they sleep, when they use the toilet, when they use the shower, and he managed to incorporate that. I don't know how successful it is in terms of incorporating those elements into the game, but I feel like it was good. It was a good attempt at doing that. Like, and you could use the bodily fluid as a weapon as well, or some sort of deterrent against the BTs. That's fascinating. I don't know how many games there might be other games that have done that, but it's just he sort of incorporated that into this game, and that's an interesting. I'm going to say interesting a lot and fascinating. Those are the only words that I can try to use constantly. Oh, and emotional. Yeah, I'm. I heard that the Death Stranding storybook is coming out. There's like 3 parts to it, so I'm fascinated by it. There's a whole bunch of laws in here as well, that you can read about. Let's continue, shall we? Oh yeah, so yeah, the game is about learning to fail in a way, but learning from that failure, if that makes sense. What else is there? So I did talk about a linear game set in open world. I like that idea, but there might be more about it that I can't quite put my mind to expand on. I might later on. So this is not just. This might be, it might be multiple parts if I have more thoughts to this discussion, to this chat. All right, simplistic structure and gameplay loop. Yeah, I sort of touched upon that. There's some. It sort of stripped away, and I sort of talked about that. The gameplay loop is you deliver stuff, you get your upgrades. All right, you don't really have this sense of, oh, I've leveled up to. You do get like a high level equipment, but as you play the game. But I didn't feel like I had to grind for it. It was part of the story, which I sort of talked about. It's not really, it's not a grindy game in that sense. But I suppose if you play the game and you're just delivering stuff back and forth, you can feel that that's a grindy process. It depends on how you what your expectations are of the game, and that's the other thing as well, right? Like if a person expects this game to be a shooter, a 50-hour shooter, well, or a stealth type game, right? With mechanics where you can, pick up an enemy and use them as a lure or something like that. Well, it's not that type of game. That's like I didn't really have that expectation coming into this. I knew that it was a delivery, as some might call it, delivery walking simulator, right? Or the ultimate delivery walking simulator. And I just went in with that. Yeah, there were bits that I thought, oh, this could have been cut down by 5 hours or 10 hours. So I had that set of expectation, and it didn't really bother me. So yeah, anyway, I'm not sure what I've got this note. Yeah, it's about the journey. That's what I wrote about. Just clean that up a bit. I sort of said the lore ideas is sort of layers on top of each other. Okay, so in terms of the story and lore, this is where the complexity comes in rather than the specific gameplay, right? Having the ideas being connected to each other and then layered on top of each other, sort of in a way, interconnected. It was so, to me, it was beyond my understanding, and I can only glimpse at bits and pieces here and there. Things like the beach, right? How they're connected, and the characters. Okay, right. Am I going to be talking about the character next? Some scenes feels like something. Oh, okay. I'll talk about that later on. It's not about gaining more power compared to other games. Yeah, it's okay. Just quickly, this is not a game about getting more powers. I don't think there's much to say about that. I mean, you do get slightly better equipment, things with better batteries in it. I mean, but it's the heart of it. I don't believe it's about getting more and more powerful. I don't think that's the main focus of it. It helps in your journey ultimately. Oh, okay. This is now my attempt to try to talk about the sort of the world and the ideas, or maybe partially about the lore. It's, yeah, about life and death. There is concepts from philosophy, mythology, spirituality, maybe some psychology, sociology, metaphysical, and science fiction. It's like all mashed together, fused together, and I can barely wrap my head around this. Maybe I'm trying to make it more than what it is. Maybe it really isn't like that at all. Maybe it's just my idea of what it is. But if that's the case, I'm all right. Sure, I'll run with that. Maybe like I generally have this sense that certain things might be bigger than what it is. Maybe this is like one of those things, right? What was I saying before? I sort of missed. Okay, I missed like a point I was trying to make. All right, again, some of the stuff I don't really have a point to make. It's just like almost a list of things I'm just firing out there before this entire thing fades away from my mind. Okay, the characters. The characters, there is some sort of ethereal qualities to them. They're almost ethereal like. I don't know how to quite put it. Maybe I don't know if it's how Kojima's perception is. I think he was going through a lot of personal things in his life as well. And maybe it's, I don't know if it's how the characters are presented, but at the same time, I mean, there's a sense of being quite distant and disconnected. There's the word again, disconnected, right? But in a way that sort of helps with this game. But there were times where the characters, or the actors that portray these characters, just sort of brings forth these emotions that grounds them, that makes them relatable. So again, there's that paradox, a strange paradox. Like the characters, the things that they talk about, that comes out of their mouth, the way they act, the world itself, it's so alien, right? Like I sometimes find it very hard to grasp what they're trying to say, but at the same time, they bring forth these especially like approaching the end of the game, there's emotion, and you gotta have this, the actors, the voice act, the physical actors, how they brought it out. That's amazing, right? At the technology in this game to show the facial expressions. Wow. Okay, that's the other thing as well, right? The technology used for this game, doing the facial expressions, the raw emotion that comes out from these characters, it's amazing. And I'd sort of think about, I think Kojima wanted to be a movie director. And I could see him really doing it. I don't know how this was done. I imagine it is very, very difficult to try to show expression, to show that level of emotion in a character. The only other game that there's a few games, but one of the other games that had used technology to show, graphical technologies to show those emotion is Last of Us, right? I mean, for those of you that have played it, have seen, just the first, 15 minutes of that game, right? That is very emotional bit, and that was done through motion capture. The actors, doing the voices and being able to show that on screen, it's amazing. And in this as well, it's like I was just so blown away, despite the fact that I was so lost with what's going on. So before I lose myself completely, what was that? Right to left. Oh, is it? I thought once they've translated, it's in a Western way, isn't it? Or maybe they would keep. I don't know. I'm not sure until I see it. All right. Before I forget. So about the characters, all the characters, they sort of stand out in their own way. They all have their own thing. But the one that's sort of, I don't want to say that they stood out for me more than the others, right? They stood out in certain ways, all right? Let's say in a almost grounded and earthly way is Die Hardman and Cliff Unger, all right? With Die Hardman, if I'm not mistaken, hang on, let me just, is he in here? I just want to make sure I'm not getting the names wrong. I get the names wrong all the time. Is Die Hardman in here? Is Deadman? Oh, Die Hardman, he is, right. So with Die Hardman, initially he's got that mask. Okay, here's the thing about the mask. I didn't quite understand the mask, and I read up about it. It's just to hide the identity. I'm like, I thought there'll be something a bit more convoluted in regards to the mask. Maybe there is. I didn't read carefully enough. But yeah, with Die Hardman, I was like, I didn't really feel any connection. It's just there giving me orders, pushing me forward in the storyline. You gotta do this. You gotta care. Make sure that antimatter bomb don't blow off. You gotta get this there. He's that he's the guy giving the orders. You gotta do this. You gotta make sure everything's right so we can connect. He gives a sense of agency to the player, right? All right, I'm fine with that. But as the game got to the end, you realize, we're talking about maybe the last 8 hours of the game. Okay, some people might say that that's way too late to make you feel something for a character. I'm sure that there were more stuff that the character might have revealed at the very beginning, right? And I'd missed, because I'm gonna miss something. I'm gonna miss a lot of stuff in 50 hours. I'm gonna forget things. Anyway, but yeah, it might have been a bit late. To show Die Hardman's as a character, as a character that you can connect with. But I suppose that's the climax of the story, right? It was so painful. I mean, all the characters, every one of them, there was some pain associated with them. But at the same time, with Die Hardman, I was like, especially when he broke down in front of Sam, right, at that scene, he was just trying. I think he was trying to get some sort of forgiveness. I mean, I could be completely wrong, and it was so painful that it feels so genuine, so raw, and then that's to the credit of the actor. it's it. How can I say this? Like the scenes that I've experienced, it's almost as if I'm not supposed to look at some of these things, some of these emotions that these characters are showing. It's like I'm prying into a very, very private and personal moments, and that's how it felt to me. That's how raw the emotion was from those scenes. It's like, oh my god, am I supposed to be looking at this? I feel that's a sense of guilt. It's a very strange. I'm like, oh wow, this. He's putting it all out there, and I feel for like Die Hardman, because like my idea was he had to do what he had to do, just like all the other characters, just like Bridget as well. Like some people say that she's horrible, but you gotta understand, like from what I know anyway, she had to make a tough decision, right? Extinction straight away or delayed, get it over and done. And she was in a spatial area at the beach where time did not matter, and it was like a curse to her in a way. Like she had to, and she was an extinction entity. And she had to decide to try to put it off for as long as possible, or like dragging it out and watching human civilization just scrabbling along, right? Which also ties to the gameplay and Sam Porter, right? And that's amazing to me. That this is where the connection, this sort of a rough connection is. Like when you're playing the game, Sam, like you playing as Sam, he's trying to scrabble through the mountainous regions, the horrible rocky areas, the rivers, the going through the BTs and things like that. And it's just the whole idea. It's just, he even says it at some point, right? At a few points, right? Just trying to hang on, just trying to live through to another day, just going from day to day. And that, should Bridget's witnessing. I think Bridget can see all this, and should she just get it over and done with, restart the whole thing again, and have the next evolution, right? The next, what do you call it? I don't know what you call it. The next species that can survive better, learning from their past mistakes, and that's fascinating, right? And she had to make horrible decisions, like manipulate people, do things, do terrible things, right? And one of those people that got pulled into the situation was like Die Hardman, right? That's terrible. But his connection, his love to Cliff Unger was very strong as well, and you could see that pain in him. It's at that last scene. And Cliff. Oh my god, how do I don't even know where to go with that. Like when I was playing the game and I saw Cliff, you get glimpses of what he had to do, like that his connection with BB and the BB to you, because you get glimpses of BB's perspective, right? It's only to the end when it all comes together. But like the story is sort of, in a way, told you that Cliff is not the villain, but he has to do what he has to do to get BB back. You just don't quite understand the reasoning behind it. I still don't, like the game did sort of say, oh, BB is you, but then at the very last scene, there was something else happening as well. But I've got a theory behind that. Anyway, about the characters. So it's heartbreaking because Unger's trying to get his baby back, and he had to take the life. Well, his wife was in a what they call a still wife or something like that. She was like catatonic state or some sort of vegetative state, and he had to end her life in order to protect and take BB with him. But he didn't even succeed at that. He just came back again, right? And he lost his life, but somehow he was able to traverse the beach and bring well, he was able to bring the beach to our world, his version of the beach, or pull people into his beach. It's like there's so much to that. I could, well, I couldn't because I don't know how to even describe that sort of idea. But yeah, like these are like truly tragic characters. Like if you think about it, there's really no specific villains. You could say, oh, Higgs is a villain. He's a specific villain. But again, he's been put through. Apparently, right, there's a bit more to him, but the game, the cutscenes doesn't quite show that. So he comes off as a, stereotypical crazed villain. But I think there's a bit more. Higgs particles. I think there's a bit more to his story, but from my understanding, he had a terrible upbringing, and that's from what I read outside of the game itself, just very, very briefly. So I just would have liked if there were a bit more given to, to round him off in the game's cutscene itself. And that's one of the other issues with certain games, when it's so heavily loaded with a lot of lores, a lot of ideas, and it's all relegated. Like, a lot of it's relegated to these things like notes and stuff like that. So, I mean, they're good. You can go back and read it, but like, I want to be involved in the game, right? I suppose one of the ways you could do it is have the characters talk to you, but that is also another sort of an issue with presenting game stories, expositions. I don't know if there's any other way of presenting ideas and characters' backgrounds and exposition without lengthy talking head, like people just talking. It's hard, but I'm sure there's different ways of doing it. I mean, this is fine if you want to go in and have a read, but I like to be able to experience it on screen, right? Like as you play the game, not as notes or even audio logs. That's one of the issues I had with Horizon Zero Dawn. There are quite a few of audio logs, and that goes back, like, I don't know how far back. Like one of the problems I had with BioShock Infinite, I like that game. I never streamed it. It was way before my streaming days, but it was the log files, like the audio logs. It just there's something about them that just feels very, in a way, dated in how stories are presented, backstories, right? And I feel like the next step in what people do with big games like this is how they present backstories and ideas, right? And I like cutscenes, but one of the issues again with this game is the excessively long cutscenes. Again, I don't know how you would change it to make it less lengthy. I think the last few cutscenes in this game was like an hour plus. I could be wrong. It was quite long, but I mean, it's worth it. But at the same time, I feel like there might be something people could do. I know it's heresy to say that, to do edits and stuff like that. I feel like maybe Kojima likes control. He likes to control the game and how people experience the game. Maybe I don't know. But I think that's one of the other things that other people have said before. That's why the game feels so funneled and linear in a way. Anyway, that's a side thing. I'm sort of like going elsewhere. I mean, I briefly talked about how painful it is to look at. I mean, to see what these characters are experiencing through. I mean, I'll move on to the next person, like Bridget or Amelie. I also talked about that. She had to make terrible decisions, like at a global scale, because of the whole extinction thing. Like from our perspective, it seems heartless, but from her perspective, she has to adjust. She has to look at a massive scale and sacrifices, and that's the thing as well, right? It's about making sacrifices. I think that sort of translate in the gameplay as well. Like, do you want to carry extra cargo spray to fix up the cargo, or do you want to carry more, I don't know, hermetic grenades, right? So you gotta make sacrifices. So in a way, that's a very, very tenuous link to the sort of decisions the characters have to make. But I feel like there is a sort of a connection there. Like each characters have to make very bad decisions, not bad decisions, like tough decisions, right? That cost them a lot, making sacrifices. So, I, and in a way that sort of goes into the gameplay as well, roughly. What else is there? I talked about the extinction, structures wearing out. So, oh yeah, the ideas of death, birth, rebirth. Um, I might talk about Mama or Malingen Lochner in a little bit when I talk about the theories of Sam. Maybe I don't even fully know about that properly. Or clinging on to life. I sort of talked about that. The characters, the players are sort of clinging on as he's going through the terrain, right? I might as well talk about what's this. Okay. I like this idea of Sam talking to himself, just giving himself encouragement, and sometimes he berates himself as well. He gives himself, he sort of says, "Oh, what are you doing?" or something along those lines. He sort of insults himself. So he's being hard on himself. You learn about the character, but you are that character as well. At the same time, you're listening to him, but he's also giving you encouragement. Come on, you gotta keep on going. This one's for you. But he's also giving all this idea of giving thumbs up, and that sort of builds upon the whole thing of not being isolated, not being alone, right? And I find that there's something about that really grabbed me as well. Like he's talking to you, but you're using him to experience the world, but at the same time, you're indirectly interacting with other players. I mean, through the items, delivering their lost items, giving them thumbs up, using their equipments, they're using yours. That sort of thing is, it's, I don't know. I don't know how to describe that. I mean, I'm just presenting it as how I've seen it, right? How I've experienced it. Next thing, oh yeah, I talked about making sacrifices, right? Like even the babies are sacrifice in a way, right? If you think about it, they're treated as equipment, the BBs, right? And these are not, they're like, I think they're not babies that are fully born. They're just taken out of the womb, right? So they're sort of between life and death, which means they sort of are the bridge between life and death, between the beach and our world, right? And that's another level of connection as well. And yeah, and in our world, we're treating them as equipment. I think Bridget's idea, right? Because she wanted to link the whole world together, and the BBs were part of that plan. Let's see what else. Oh yeah, they even treated the BBs as equipment by using the words like, I think Deadman was calling them at one point, calling BB, oh no, you don't want to brick it or something like that, like treating it like a phone, like you don't want to brick your phone, but you don't want to brick the BB unit, like mess it up or causing problems with it, and using the word decommissioning. It's very, they try to disconnect themselves from these living beings, BBs, babies, right? And that is horrifying. That is a horrifying idea. But they have to do what they had to do in order to achieve their goals, right? To connect, to rebuild. And it's terrifying. It's a terrifying thing to use an unborn child, I suppose. Is that what you would call it? And in order for them, this is my thought, my interpretation, in order for them to sort of disconnect from that horror of treating a living being as an equipment, they had to, just essentially call them as equipment, right? They have incinerators when the BBs are not functioning. And you saw the last scene. You saw all the BBs, the ghost of the BBs. They're in like silvery white color floating, because those were the ones from. That's what I thought anyway. Like from the previous ones that were incinerated, and that it's very sad. Again, it comes back to making sacrifices, right? What are you willing to do to achieve the greater good? And I think that this game sort of goes to that length to try to talk about that, to express that. What else? In order to hang on to life, extend that life. All right, so yeah, they make these sacrifices to extend, what they have as it is, to persevere, and I've sort of talked about that, to cling on to life. There's not really any real villains. Even the mules aren't really villains, because they used to be porters, right? They just got desperate. If that's how I understood it. Oh, okay. Just quickly back to the cutscenes. Yeah, they were quite lengthy. There were some scenes that were interactive. But I feel like if they broke it up a bit more with some interactivity in those cutscenes, like the bit where I think you're a BB and you're swimming around in the facility just briefly, and then the cutscene jumps in. But I feel like they could have done a bit more, maybe with more interaction, right? Ultimately, you're a player, and you want, well, I do anyway. I want some level interaction. I think I can only compare it with there's one scene in there where you were given a gun, and you were at Bridget's beach, right? And you were asked to do something. I felt that was a good way of doing interactivity. There was some decision to be made, right? And there was like an end bit as well, if you didn't do it right. And it wasn't like a super difficult thing. It wasn't like a crazy puzzle or anything like that. Even the scene when you're just walking around and around for the next cutscene to come, even that, I felt was, it's some level interactivity. So I felt that those were good parts, like in terms of what they needed to do. Maybe they could have done a bit more, but like the very good example I would give is something like a interactive cutscene is something like when Sam was pointing the gun and asking you, should you shoot or not at Bridget, right? But there was something to it. You don't have to do that. You don't do that in order to progress the story. The other game by Kojima was Phantom Pain at the very, very beginning. For those that haven't played it, it's a bit of a spoiler. You have all these scenes, but he's sort of woven the cutscene with the gameplay, right? You're sort of crawling around in the hospital when it gets attacked, But there were a few bits that showed you were helpless. Like, they gave you a weapon, I think, and you were shooting at one of the enemies. You couldn't do anything. But the whole point is to show you couldn't do anything. They gave you a gun, if I'm not mistaken, is to show you that it's inevitable. You can't do anything about it. And I like that idea. It's a very easy way to show you how powerful those creatures were, or how powerful those enemies were in that scene in Phantom Pain. I feel like he could have done something like that with this game as well, but in the last few scenes. But how would you do it? I don't know. I haven't thought about it. Like, how would you break up those scenes? It is a very emotional scene that had several stages. You had, Cliff's scene. You had Die Hardman's scene. If you try to break up a very emotional scene with gameplay, would that lessen the impact of the emotions, the feelings, right? How? I don't know. It might make it feel less. I mean, there's maybe some scenes I would not want to put a interactive bit in them. Maybe the last scene with Sam taking BB out of the container, or maybe that could be a thing. The game makes you take BB out. You can't really do anything else, but that level of interactivity, it's you that is initiating that process, right? Or what about the bit where he's trying to resuscitate? Would it feel even less if it were you as a player doing it, or would it feel better with a cutscene? I don't know. With a cutscene, you get to see the actor performing. You see the emotion, the his crying and the desperation of bringing Lou back or BB back. So it's hard to say. Maybe that bit, no interactivity. Yeah, it's one of those things that's maybe they did think about it and thought, no, they'll just water it down. They'll just water down the emotions. Okay, move on. Oh yeah, facial animation. I talked about that. It's incredible. I don't know how to do it, but they did it. Oh yeah. So there's gameplay sections, right? Most of the time you're looking like from the back. You're looking at the back of Sam, right, as you're traversing the land. So with third-person games, obviously you see the back of the characters. Most of the time you see the back of the head, the body, right? So I'm playing games like Assassin's Creed Odyssey, Assassin's Creed Origins, Watch Dogs, whatever. When you turn the camera around, or when you do the screen caps and things like that I've done quite a few, you notice the face is this still face. It's just lack of emotions. Nothing when they're doing action, as far as I know, in those games. Like when they're jumping off certain places, it's just this still face. But when you're looking at Sam just struggling through the tar when he's about to be attacked by the BTs and things like that, you can see the anguish in his face. You can even change his facial expression in the photo mode, right? And that's amazing that they've programmed facial expressions. I think they've done that as well with Horizon Zero Dawn. I don't know if Aloy changes her face as you're playing the game, not in photo mode, but I feel like it did it in Death Stranding. The only other game that I played recently that had the characters having facial expression was Final Fantasy 15, right? But I've only seen that, if I'm not mistaken, through the photos that Prompto's taken, and that's amazing system as well. Like Prompto takes those photos, and you can see the expressions on the character's face. Like the fact that they program facial expressions in action bits, it just blows me away. Like not many games, I don't know how many games actually do that. They bother to put facial expression, and that's very important. Like as I say, most of the time you're looking behind your character, right? But to go the extra mile, the extra effort to program in the face, it connects you to the character you're playing, to feel that anguish, that pain, that suffering that they're going through, or elation or happiness that they're going through. Again, back to Final Fantasy 15, where you see them in the happy moments when Prompto takes those photos. And even though you don't get to see it when you're fighting, you get to see it in the photos, but you were the ones doing those action bits, it connects you, and that's very important in a game. For me anyway, to be able to connect in that way. Now, I'm not going to say, first-person games, you don't have to worry, but like, that's a different sort of thing, right? You're stepping into the shoe, you're stepping into the head of the character. So it is a bit different in that regards. I'm not going to discount first-person games. I know someone's going to bring up eventually, Cyberpunk's only going to have first person. You're not going to be able to feel any of those emotions. It's a different experience, right? And that's how that's how I choose to see it anyway. So anyway, that's just a very brief idea on that. How long have I been going on for? More than an hour. So it looks like I've got quite a bit. I'm almost there. I might have to do a part 2, because I do actually have quite a bit more to talk about. Now let me just quickly skim through my notes. Spending time with Lou, I talked about that. Inevitability, despite the idea, keep on going, keep on fighting. Yep, talking about that. Talking about oh no, all right, yeah. There's stuff about humility, humanity, grief, getting over the grief, learning to live to move forward. No typical villains. I think I talked about that as well. Uh, oh yeah. How did I try to process all those emotions in the game? I mean, most of it came near the end, and it was difficult to process it. I think I might have tried to like lighten the mood. I mean, for those that were here while you watch me played it, the scene where I had to take BB to the incinerator, it was I think I did say it was a painful experience, but I think how I approached it was compartmentalization. That's I knew that it was a game, but I didn't want to lose that emotional connection with what I experienced and go, I'll just brush it aside. It's just a game. I didn't want to do that because then it would just, I don't want to say the word devalue, but it would just loses what I've done in the game itself. It's not just about the delivery or the fact that I've reached the end of the game. It's also about the emotion which I absorbed, I've collected in me. So compartmentalization helped me to sort of allow me to not get overwhelmed by the feelings, right? So I can sort of try to put it aside just a little bit while I focus on playing the game. And it's difficult because I'm trying to interact with my viewers as well. I mean, it's not that difficult, but it's through I've experienced enough of it to be able to know how to do it. So I didn't want to completely lose my connection to those emotions, which is connected to the game itself and to the characters. And I feel that that's very important. If I lose that, if I lose those connections, then what? I'll just be treating this as as just a game. That's it. This is a product. And I didn't want to do that. And it was painful carrying BB to the incinerator at the very last bit. And right now, even thinking about it, that, I can feel that emotion coming back. It is one of the most difficult thing. It felt like it's like a heavy weight, obviously, but a weight that you cannot measure. That's the only way I could put it. So I had to sort of slightly push that aside and just focus on walking and moving forward, and which I'd done throughout the 50 hours of the game. Put your foot forward, move forward, keep on going. And, there's something bittersweet about it, but, the ending was nice. You got a nice ending. You got a, even now I'm feeling like the emotions coming back, and it's but going there, you don't know I don't know what was gonna happen. I hope for the best things, but there's a part of me was thinking, all right, this is it. I'm gonna have to do it. I'm gonna have to get it over and done with. But there was some hint about taking BB out. Was there some special thing I had to do? Some trickery, about taking BB out? Was there something I missed? I was panicking seeing the incinerator activating, right? But anyway, moving along. Gameplay loop. No, what is the driving force for the player? I suppose the driving force for me was not really about getting, as I said before, was not getting more powerful. It's about, I think someone has once said, I don't know where I got this from. It's not fear that drives. That's, you've got, in general, there's two things that drives a person: the carrot or the stick. Fear or reward, right? The fear of losing, the fear of dying, that is a driving force, and or reward. You get more stuff to live to see another day. In this, it's about the mystery itself. It's about learning about the characters. I suppose you could call that the reward, right? And that was driving force for me in this game to push me forward. Yeah, I not much to say about that, is there? Um, why did I say that twice? Building confidence and delivery. Uh, Sam talking to himself. Okay, I talked about that. Encouraging himself. Uh, oh, there's some fourth wall breaking stuff or self-referential things or meta things. Yeah, like when Sam's in the living quarters, he's gesturing, making faces to us, the player. That's interesting. I thought, it breaks it up. Um, oh, and the fight with Higgs, that was like a meta moment. It's like you see the health bar at the very top. It's like a fighting game. It's a meta, and there's moments where Bridget, oh no, Amelie. At that point, it was Amelie and Sam running through the beach. No, before that, it was like, so he's Mario and you're Princess Peach. It was like some, very like a meta sort of thing, referring to another game. I like that sort of humor. And Higgs referring several times that to Sam, let's get on with the game or something like that. He was talking about game and he was saying, all right, this is it. This is the final boss fight. Oh, this is a boss fight. I thought that was funny. That sort of weird meta humor, I guess. Really, I like that sort of thing. But there was something else as well. Okay, so who is it? Dead Man. Dead Man. There's something, I don't know if someone's picked this up. So his features, right? His character is based on Guillermo del Toro. Sorry, I mispronounced that. But he is voiced by someone else, right? I think he's even motion captured by someone else. But in the game, Deadman was saying he doesn't really feel like him. He's a whole person or something along those lines. He doesn't have a spirit because he was sort of put together, but he wasn't put together correctly. And in a way, that is like a meta thing to the character itself and how the character's voice and how the character's like created. Like to me, I was like, whoa, that's like a meta thing, isn't it? I really like that. It's like it's almost a self-referential thing, and they build a character idea behind that he's not a full person, but he is. Even though at first he appeared as someone that just got into the space, the personal space of Sam all the time, but in the end, him and Sam hugged it out, and that's how he formed that again, a connection, and that's a emotional part as well. I like that. I say that a lot. I know. Hang on, let me just drink something quickly. So that I'm sure there's a lot more meta things that I missed out. What else is there? Yeah, I'm not even sure if the actors themselves know exactly what's going on. I think there was some interviews with Norman, and I think he wasn't quite sure. I think there were interviews with Mads. He was saying something like he wasn't quite sure either. The person playing it as Unga. But they managed to sell their characters, their emotions, their needs, and that's amazing. That means the director, the creator, was able to, let them know how to show what and how to show those emotions in a game that is, they're not there, but they're acting with their voice, their facial expressions, their physicality, and translated onto graphics. I find that to be amazing. To be able to show all that expression. Yeah. What more could I say? I mean, I've said that previously already. Despite not fully knowing what's going on, they're still able to convey that message of their feelings. What else? Oh yeah. I don't know. Like some people I've read said that this could have been better as a movie or TV show or books rather than a game. I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure. I mean, this comes back to the whole gameplay concept, right? The whole maybe it might have, but would it have made that level of impact? I mean, as a player, me anyway, spending 50 plus hours traversing the land, going through all that, carrying BB with me, like him talking to me, like, you know, if you exclude the cutscenes, just the gameplay itself, those feelings that I have at that moment was genuine, right? Like, but it was through the gameplay itself. So I don't know if you were to take out the gameplay and just create a movie, I don't know if it would work as well. I mean, because I formed such a relationship, such a connection with BB Lou, Louise, bit of a spoiler there, and Sam, as well as the other characters through that journey, I've already dug in quite deep, if that makes sense. If I were to sit down and watch, say, a 2 hour movie, would I feel the same way? Or would they need to do a lot more to compensate for that zero gameplay in a passive media? If that makes sense. I don't know. It might be a different experience entirely, you know? Um, I yeah, I don't know what else to say. I mean, I keep coming back to the word emotions, emotion. I mean, I don't have any other way to talk about it. um, what else? It's not really about exploration, doing different side activities. Yeah, I talked about that. Well, sort of. I mean, there is some exploration in there if you want to do it, but it really wasn't that driving that wasn't a driving force for me. Um, audio logs, lengthy cutscenes, exposition heavy, story progression moments, hotel story. Oh, okay. Final bit. My rough idea. I still don't know what's going on with the last scene when. Spoiler for anyone that hasn't played it and don't want to get spoiled. Sam said BB's name is Louise, right, rather than Lou. So I'm a bit confused about that, and I'm sure I missed out a ton of stuff. But from what my memory has obtained and interpreted, there's like I've got roughly maybe three theories, right? There's a point in which Sam became two different Sams, or rather, his spirit split. So we sort of know that can kind of happen with people like Bridget. Her body was here, but her spirit is in the bridge, right? I think. And then we've got Lapna. Hang on. Let me get. I'm always mispronouncing her names. Lachna? Oh, yeah. Malingen and Lochner. Not Lachna. Lochner. And Malingen or Mama, right? Like, Malingen was, I think, dead already, but her, not dead, but her spirit is no longer there, right? And then she died soon after, but her spirit was connected with Lochner. They became one. That's my understanding. I could be completely wrong, and it could be written right here that that's not the case. Doesn't quite say it in here. Maybe it does. Seeing beyond the clouds when I spend. So parents, there's researchers. Name of the pair of craters led by meteors which struck the Earth 450 million years ago. Yeah, it doesn't quite say it in here. Oh, it's probably... Was it in here? Anyway. Alright, I'm trying to wrap it up now because I've gone on way longer than I should. Look, at quite a lot to talk about. Yeah, so I think the key to sort of understanding what happened with BB, Louise, and or Sam is the idea that the possibility that maybe Sam or Sam's spirit has split in two because he's repatriated. He's able to reborn again, right? I have a feeling. I don't know. I cannot confirm this because I don't understand this properly. Is maybe there is an idea of quantum concept involved somehow. And my brain is not capable of understanding quantum, but the brief idea, and I'm not even gonna try to attempt to get into that, but I just have a feeling it might somehow be involved. That's all I can say about that. But it's possible that maybe Sam's spirit became two, and then Louise is another version of Sam, maybe. Because we knew that Sam was somehow brought up on the beach, right? By Bridget, or rather Amelie. She shaped him in some ways for her plans, right? But at some point, I don't know if it's maybe the point when Sam met Unger, and asked him, "Am I Lou? Am I BB?" Maybe at that point there was a split, or maybe the point when BB went to the beach, the spirit split. Maybe, I don't know. That's one of the theories. I mean, it's pretty rough. The second possibility is that, excuse me. Oh, you sort of, I think there's something special about BB units, as I said, well, not units, the BBs, right? The babies that are not completely formed, that they've used as equipment, they have the capability of interacting with the world of the dead, right? With the beach. So I think it's possible that they can harbor spirits, different spirits, or multiple spirits. I don't know. They're different in that regard, I feel. It's probably a bit more. I'll probably have to come back to it another time. The second theory is that Louise is actually Bridget. Because we saw that when Louise came back to life, right? On the shoulder or the chest, people was laughing at the very last scene on the chest of Sam. BB was holding on to what was it called? What the heck was it called? It was like, it's not a cupid. Was it a cupid? Kipu. I think he was holding on to Bridget's Kipu, right? Because if you watch the cutscene during the president's inauguration, they all were wearing that. I thought at first maybe BB took it off Sam's jacket, but I don't think that's the case. BB was holding on to the Kipu. I think it was a Kipu, right? It looked like the necklace that Bridget was wearing. So is it possible that Bridget is Louise, a rebirth? Her spirit was able to go through. Or, third theory, that is another version of Bridget. We know that there is Amelie, right? But it's not really Amelie, that's fake. So is it possible that she's able to create another version of herself and put as a spirit put into BB? Maybe? I don't know. I don't know, maybe other people, that all these could be completely wrong, and I've missed a whole bunch of stuff. I've just managed to put together some ideas and think that, yeah, that sounds about right. I mean, there's a whole lot of stuff here as well, near-death experience. And I didn't even talk about Hartman. I haven't even talked about Hartman. There's a whole, who else is there to talk about? I mean, Lochner, Malingans, very sad stuff, especially at the hospital. Very sad stuff. Again. Did I miss? I think I missed a whole, like, Higgs story. I missed out on that. Was there someone else? There might be. Giant BTs. There's like the golden BTs as well that I couldn't take down. Maybe I had to keep going killing them or something, keep shooting at them. Oh, and then there's the Carillium, the structures, how they look like two hands. There's things about that I don't even fully understand at all. I think that's about it. I know it's a bit of an abrupt end. I appreciate everyone for sticking around, listening to me ramble. Thank you, Suspense, Golden Cheeseburger, Mon, if you're still there, anyone that's lurking, anyone that's watching this on the archives or, listening to this. Appreciate it. Appreciate you guys hanging out. This was quite an experience. I wanted to get this off my chest or my mind. I know it's not really. I didn't mean it as an informative thing. I didn't mean it as a wiki. You know, I didn't. It was. It's not an in-depth analysis. It's just me with my streams of consciousness, just throwing it out there. I really appreciate it, everyone. I hope you all have a good day or night. Take care. Stay safe. And I'll see you all next time. Bye.